Was this book like every other YA love triangle trilogy setup book? Yes. Was I kicking and screaming the whole time? Also yes. If you don't know what Powerless is, but you've read Red Queen, then you have the idea. I really enjoyed this book, but I also really understood where people were coming from with the Red Queen / Hunger Games references. Powerless follows the journey of a young woman named Paedyn, who has no powers in a world where that is illegal. While she was growing up, her father taught her how to be very intuitive and observant so that she could pretend to pass as a psychic. It's very much giving mentalist Criminal Minds on that end. She and her best friend Adina are living on the streets. Both of their parents have passed away. And they're basically scraping by with Paedyn acting as Aladdin, stealing the things that they need, until one day she pickpockets the prince who is undercover and then ends up saving him later. This earns her sort of a notoriety in her, is it a city? I'm not really sure. But because of that, she ends up getting put in this sort of Hunger Games-esque / Goblet of Fire situation where she's gonna have to go up against a bunch of other teens that have very strong powers, including this prince who is basically the middle child of the royal family. His name is Kai. He is basically being trained to be the executioner for his older brother Kitt, who is the heir. Madness ensues after that. I don't want to give too much away, though I will say it really does follow a lot of similar story beat vibes as like The Hunger Games, Goblet of Fire, and Red Queen. If you like those books, you will probably like Powerless. But I just really want to talk about the story because I had a really fun time reading this. So if you have not read Powerless, it is your time to exit. Goodbye. Read the book and come back so we can discuss. Okay, so starting this book, I thought I was going to go the whole book without taking notes. I absolutely flew through this audiobook. For me, it takes minimum a week to get through an audiobook most of the time. This one I got through in like 3 or 4 days, which is like a very fast reading experience for me. And I wasn't taking any type of notes until we got at least a third of the way through. She's already at the palace. So obviously she is going to go into these Hunger Games things, but they get breaks. It's not like they're stuck in an arena, so they get to go back and stay at the palace for weeks at a time, which is giving her ample amount of time to get to know Kai, the future executioner, and Kitt, the future king. And of course, obviously, both of them are in love with her. So, I was getting a little frustrated, I think, because I had just come out from reading Sky Shade, and I feel like this year has been the year of morally gray men in our books. And normally that is the tropes that I like are usually enemies to lovers, the vibes where like, they're not always just 100% good. But by the time I got to this book, I'm pretty sure I put it in my notes. You know what? Let's just pick Kitt. Because I liked Kitt a lot. I think by the end of the book, I was more Team Kai than Team Kitt. But they were pretty close for me. And usually I have a very strong sense of one or the other. But in this one, I wasn't completely against picking Kitt. I was like, Kai has had his issues and I understand. I want him to be happy. But at the same time, like, I want Kitt to be happy. This poor guy. He has so much riding on his shoulders. And the two of them just got along so well because Kitt is nice. And Kai, he does the banter thing. It's very much more like not spicy, like flamey, as opposed to Kitt being just like kind and nice and gentle. I was like, let's go with that one for once. Anyways, we go into the first trial, which is, I feel like, of them all, the most Hunger Games-esque trial, because it's like in the wilderness and there's literally like, everybody has powers, but to me, it almost acts like the Hunger Games arena, just because that is, I feel like when I'm reading YA, a lot of the times I do relate back to Hunger Games, because I think, first of all, a lot of books pull inspiration from that trilogy, but also just a lot of tropes and things we're most used to seeing are from that book, and I read that one first. But we're going through this, and because Paedyn is like, has no powers, and she's basically like playing at being a psychic, and she can't prove that power. Like, nobody can prove it. That's why it keeps her safe. It's like nobody can say that she's not a psychic, if that makes sense, especially when she's telling them things about herself, which is something I really liked before we headed into this first trial. Is we basically had Caesar Flickerman going through all of the tributes. I feel like I'm just equating it too much to Hunger Games, but it was an interview and she starts reading all of these people because she's very intuitive, but to other people it comes off as a psychic power. And she tells people the reason, my power is undetectable is because it's a really small power. And she's basically getting off with that. But she was raised to fight. Like, her dad taught her to fight while she was growing up. So she is in some ways on a level playing field with some of these people. But the other people's powers almost act like the issues that you come up in a normal Hunger Games arena. There's one person who can sort of, I guess, project almost hologram-ish. When Paedyn ends up like on her own in this wildernessy area, she sees Kitt, or at least she thinks she sees Kitt, dead in a pond, and it turned out to be a hallucination. And in this case, other people can see it because they have these little kids running around this arena who, I imagine them as just having cameras. I kind of skimmed over that part. But like, they're running around and letting people see what is going on inside this arena. And it did feel very Katniss-y because Paedyn's like making a bow and arrow, and she's like, my dad taught me how to do this. And I was like, Katniss, is that you? Now, the whole book, the reason I'm not going into the first little bit of it is because it is just like similar to things that we've read before. You can understand the picture. She goes to the palace, the princes are there, they both like her, a lot of banter with Kai. To the point that like they always joke about fighting each other and stuff like that, but when they're actually in this arena and Kai finds her and sees that she has been hurt really badly, he becomes very protective of her, as to be expected. And then they are allowed to pair up. Like, the thing is with this, for me, they don't have to kill anyone. A lot of these kids, when they go into this arena, if they're going to kill someone, it's because they want to sort of assert their dominance and achieve glory for themselves in some sense. Or they're going to kill someone in self-defense, and because they are so powerful, like, it's more likely they're going to cause a fatal injury. But when Sadie comes over, she's coming to finish Paedyn off, basically. She wants to kill her. And I think a lot of it has to do with where Paedyn is from, because she's from the slums in their society. And so a lot of the kids who are in this competition are from the elite, like the upper echelon of their society. And so there's a lot of tension there already. Now, Kai is also very physically trained the way that Paedyn is. And so he doesn't have tons of issues fighting people physically. And when Sadie shows up, I honestly can't remember if he just physically takes her out or if he uses her power against her. Because that's the cool thing about Kai's powers. If somebody is within range, like he's a cell tower, he can pick up their power and use it himself. But when he takes out Sadie, I don't think that's the first, like, dead body that Paedyn's ever seen, but she's really super rattled at this point, and Kai, they've managed to heal each other to a certain extent, but Kai ends up leaving her to kind of recover, and he takes the body away. And when we finally all end up together again, like for the final fight of this situation, we end up almost killing. I truly thought that this man was dead. So Kai is technically the youngest, but also kind of technically the middle child, because they have adopted Jax, is my understanding. And Kai thinks he killed Jax. He didn't. He turned out to be fine. But that was all very concerning. I was like, this man is gonna spiral if that kid dies. Because honestly, I don't think Jax really has the mental grit to get through these games. People aren't gonna kill him because he's the son of the king. Is he their cousin? I think he's their cousin. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. So, during these games that we're going through, first, Paedyn is told that she needs a seamstress, and so that's when she pulls Adina to come live with her, basically, during the games, because Adina is a embroidery seamstress. Kind of another parallel to Red Queen, because I'm pretty sure that's what the younger daughter, like Mare's younger sister, was a seamstress. That's where some of these vibes kind of like overlap a little bit for me. And we also run into a couple people of the rebellion. So the people who do not have powers are called ordinaries, and the people with powers, who is like theoretically the entire society is people who have powers now, they've been led to believe that ordinaries are essentially contagious. People can cause you to lose a power if they're ordinary and around you. And it's very weird how it's set up, because people started to get powers after this series of plagues. So when people say things, they'll be like, thank the plagues. Like, it's very strange, but theoretically the plagues are what led them to have powers, and so now these ordinaries, nobody wants to be around them. They're supposed to be killed. This is part of Kai's job, and he will kill an ordinary, but he won't kill a kid, and that was a big thing in some of the early scenes. When we first see him, he's supposed to go and kill this child who's an ordinary that this family has been harboring, and essentially he was supposed to kill the child and imprison the family, but he sent them all out to the desert, that's also kind of a death sentence, but he's like, at least they'll be together. I'm like, I hope they're figuring a way out of that, because I was like, it was sad. Like, I understand what he did. He was like, I don't really have much of a choice, and he didn't want to kill the kid. But there's been all these ordinaries living among their society, and now they're forming this rebellion with the Fatals. So there's some people, their powers are too strong. They have too much power in their hands, so they also are supposed to be killed. And so it's like both sides of the spectrum, these people with no powers and these people with too much powers, but they've both been like sentenced to death by the king. And so now they are the rebellion, and they get in contact with Paedyn, and we find out that Paedyn's dad was a leader in this rebellion. And now they're like, we noticed that the future king really likes you. And that's one thing, I don't know. I really liked Kitt because he was just so like forward with it. Like he didn't beat around the bush. Like he made it very clear that he liked her. And I feel like I'm starting to just like appreciate that in a fictional love interest. There's been so much of the characters beating around the bush and miscommunication and all this stuff. I'm like, why don't you just tell each other that you like each other? But they tell Paedyn there is a way into the palace grounds that is not like basically the front entrance. And we can't figure out where it is, but there's definitely a trap door. And Kitt is going to be the one who knows where it is. We have a ballroom scene, which was really fun. Drunk Kai was there, which was also fun. He's often just so serious that it's hard to see him kind of like unwind a bit. It is also at this time where we find out that his full name is Malachi. And I'm trying to figure out how Kai spells his name because I audiobooked this. I could just Google it, but I didn't. And so the whole time I was thinking it was Kai, like the Lunar Chronicles. And now I'm like, Malachi, it just ends with Chi. Chi. It is at this point during the ball that the king threatens Paedyn because he knows who her dad is. He doesn't really let on to it. And the entire time Paedyn thinks that it was the king himself who killed her dad because she was physically in the room, or at least in the house, when one of the king's men, who she thinks is the king, comes through and stabs him. That's another thing. That's one strike against Kitt, is that he looks exactly like his dad. And this entire time Paedyn has had a mental image of the king killing her dad. And that's been really hard for her to get past. And the king, he's not stupid. He knows that both of his sons are into her and basically says, don't be doing that because you will not be marrying into this family. And he essentially dismisses her. Kai and Paedyn are dancing and they are getting very close. Like, it seems like their relationship is definitely stronger, in my opinion. I do think Kai, to an extent, understands Paedyn better because he's seen where she's from. Like, he's been out of the palace, and that's a big thing that she starts to hint to Kitt, is like, you've never been around the people. Like, you have no idea about who you're basically about to rule over. And Kitt is hardly ever even allowed out of the palace because their dad wants to protect him. But right when they're like about to have their full love confession, a guard runs out. They're like outside the ballroom and says like, your father says it's urgent, whatever. And basically that is the king's doing to split up Paedyn and Kai. Paedyn goes back to her room, but then she gets pulled right back out because they're doing like fight-offs, like divergent matchups. But people get to watch because this is all for their entertainment. This was a fun moment though, because we are fighting Blair, who I hate. This girl, she is apparently grown up around the royals, and I mean, fair. She knows what she wants. She keeps going after Kai and Kitt. I think she was just like, either one at this point. I just want to be in the royal family. But she's so annoying, and she obviously hates Paedyn because it's so clear that both of the guys are into her. But the thing about her is that she only relies on her powers at all times. And so Paedyn realizes, if I can get this girl to physically fight me, she has nothing. Like, she can't help me at all. The thing is that Blair can like pick someone up and drop them in the ground because she's like telekinetic like that. We managed to get face to face with her, and Paedyn, like, I think breaks her nose or something like that, and it's a very satisfying moment because Blair is so annoying. And this is the night before trial too, which is why it's kind of funny that Kai was drunk, because he then had to go fight like that, and he wakes up on the mountain like lightly hungover. And shortly we realize we're not on the same team, so they split up all of the people who are competing. Half of these people I don't even remember their names. I mostly remember like what their powers do, but we're on different teams. I think they're on either side of the mountain or something like that. I put, we're on different teams. Boo. Yeah, I think at this point I was leaning towards Kai more, even though I did want to like Kitt more. Though, let's just be real about how these books, she's not ending up with Kitt. Unless something wild happens. happens in the rest of, I guess it's a trilogy. In my opinion, it feels set up like a trilogy. But we're on this mountain and there's like snakes and stuff that we have to fight off. I literally don't even have notes about who won or what happened in that trial. So, and I also don't remember. To me, a lot of the trials were more just entertainment. Like, yes, you can win, but at the same time, not everyone has to die. In fact, nobody had to die unless people just lost their minds. So a lot of the time in these trials, I didn't feel as, I guess, invested as I would have if we are going to have like a showdown. Like there's a chance of Kai and Paedyn and only one of them coming out. So with the trials, I feel like I wasn't as concerned. We have a nightmare scene where Paedyn hears Kai freaking out. Their rooms conveniently are like directly across from one another, which I don't know how the king let that happen, but whatever. We go with it. She goes and comforts him and he asks her to stay. And they have like cuddling emotional time. And at that point, I was like, fine, I pick Kai. Like I will go with exactly what I know what the author wants us to do, basically. And at this point, I think Paedyn has picked Kai as well. I think the whole time she's been leaning towards him. She just, I think, feels like she likes Kitt and feels more obligated towards him. But now she just feels guilty towards him because she's supposed to be getting this key to whatever trapdoor there is for the rebellion. And she ends up stealing it off of him because that's one of her skills of being not powerful, but also having all these extra little sneaky skills. I put Lenny as the most non-love interest. I hope that we don't end up going down this path. So Lenny is like our age and he is like one of the leaders-ish of the rebellion, and he like kind of makes jokes around Paedyn that I'm like, are you flirting or is this just like, you're just kind of like that? Like what are we going for here? And I'm worried because seeing how this book ended, there's an opportunity for a love interest from the rebellion to sneak in. And I was like, could not be Lenny. Like, I don't like it. This is when we start Goblet of Fire. Like, the way the maze was set up was just, it felt so much like the maze in Goblet of Fire that they have to run through when they're trying to reach the middle. But instead of there being one of those keys, there's a person that is a criminal that they're supposed to kill in order to win. So they're all, it's kind of sick. They're all racing for the chance to kill someone. And in Paedyn's case, that means killing someone with your bare hands. Like, she doesn't have any weapons on her. There's probably not going to be any there. At least with people with powers, like, they can, it doesn't have to be so personal and physical, but part of the challenge of this maze is that the walls move and push together and stuff. And so, like, I was cringing when Paedyn was going through this because, like, her leg would get stuck or, you know, like, her clothes would tear. It was very, like, it was painful to read it. Something that was really cool. So we have, like, I mean, all the different powers. It's, like, sky high. Like, there's somebody who can multiply themselves, and I'm pretty sure we've got like a super strength situation in there. And then there's this one girl who Kai is very close with, like, they're friends, and she can transform into animals. And the problem with this power is, like, it's very difficult to control because you are an animal. She sort of goes into that mindset, and Kai knows if I use her power, like, it's very hard to come out of that. He, like, references times when they were a kid when she would get stuck in an animal form for a while. And so when he comes up on her, she is in a leopard form. Honestly, it's so cool. Like, I really like this character. I think her name's Andy, and I just think her power is cool. Like, the way she can use it is cool. And then Kai has to use her power to fight against her because you're not going up against a leopard as a human, and they end up fighting one another, and Kai is really having to fight to keep his own mind because he keeps falling into, like, a more animal mindset of, like, my kill, like, I'll stalk after this person. And he's like, no, like, this is one of my closest friends. He manages to get her off of him without hurting her just in time to get to the center to see where Paedyn has reached the center first. And the person waiting for her there is Adina. Adina has done nothing wrong, and I can't remember what her criminal offense was supposed to be because the king called her a criminal. But, like, obviously Paedyn's freaking out, so she's trying to help her friend. Adina has already been beaten to a pulp, basically. And then freaking Blair shows up and telekinetically throws a branch through Adina's body. It is the scene of Katniss crying over Rue. That is the exact scene that we're looking at here. And it sucked so much. It is at this moment that the rebellion decides to show up. And I was like, was this the plan? Because I don't think it was. I feel like they were waiting for another time, but then all these rebellion people come running out. Kitt sees her. Eye contact. knows what she did because she was the only person that he told about this door. So it's very clear, like, he's gonna know that she's a traitor, and that means very soon all of the elites and the royal family is gonna know that she's the person who did this. One thing I do like is that Kitt's power is fire, which was like it was cool to see, but also it was interesting that Kai notes that he's never seen Kitt fight like that, be angry like that before, and it's because of what Paedyn did. Now here's the problem I had as we were saying goodbye to Adina. I felt bad because obviously, like, they're close as siblings. And so Paedyn is absolutely losing her mind. This is the only friend she has in the world because she is still, like, even though she likes both Kitt and Kai, she's been manipulating Kitt, and she has, like, kind of a weird fighty thing with Kai. And she's just met both of them anyways. So she is about to lose her only friend and basically last family member. And Adina tells her, like, please go get this green vest that I made. It's for you, and I want people to see it. Like, it'd be a shame for all that work to go to waste. No, because now that Kitt knows, we need to get out of there ASAP. We do not need to be going back to the palace. But obviously, Paedyn can't leave without that vest thing, so she goes back to the palace, which in some ways is helpful because she gets a healer to look at her foot and handle that. But it also feels like it stalls us for a really long time, and that's why she ends up trying to run away. Like, she knows the second anybody in that family catches her, she is dead. And so she's running, and she runs straight into the king. At first I thought she was running into Kitt because they look the same and the description sounded the same, and then we saw that it was the king and I was like, oh my gosh. Like, I'm sure the king, I don't even remember what his power is, but obviously gonna be pretty powerful. This was one of the roughest scenes, I mean, definitely in the book, but that I've read in a while. This fight is like an all-out knockdown drag out fight between the two of them, which first of all is like impressive on Paedyn's end because she is fighting like a full-grown man. At this point, the king admits to her that he knows she has no power. He knows that she's an ordinary. He knows that it was his decree that killed her dad, but he also drops this little bomb that it was Kai was the one who killed her dad, which this part I had like a little confusion on because for Paedyn, she had such a specific memory and she explains it and I understand what happened. Like, she has this very traumatic memory. She associates the king with her dad's death, so she substituted him in as the killer, and that's just the story she's been playing over and over in her head, so that has become fact to her. But now the king is like, yeah, that was Kai's probably first kill, and we know that after that kill, Kai was sick for like a really long time. Like, he felt so bad, like he had such a hard time killing people, and then their dad, diabolical. This man is like, yeah, and see how well I trained that out of him. Like, he kills people with the blink of an eye. And I guess this is meant to jog her memory because now she can see it, like see the memory with more clarity of what actually happened and remember that it was Kitt. It was someone with darker hair, with darker eyes. I don't know. I wasn't sure if that was just like supposed to be jogging her memory, or is the king lying? Like, I assume he's not, but it was just like that part kind of caught me off guard. And then the king like pins her down. This is horrible. He like carves an O onto her like a scarlet letter. It was all incredibly painful to read. And then they are fighting, and there's so many times where he has her like about to kill her and she caught him monologuing. It was like The Incredibles where she said something to kind of set him off to give her some time. She ends up killing the king. I was like, I honestly did not expect that from her. I saw her, she had him, and I was like, she's gonna leave him. She's gonna run off and she's gonna let him live because she has more mercy than he does. But no, she actually killed that guy. This is when Kai shows up. I feel like we saw him coming or something, and I was like, girl, you absolutely need to get out of there. And she ran out. That's it. She was running, and she didn't even have time to grab her dagger. Like, that's how fast she needed to get out of there because she knew someone was coming. That someone is Kai. And my question here is that, did Kai know that he was the one who killed her dad and he was still like falling in love with her? Is that the case? Because to me, I could understand how Paedyn's memories were skewed because of like the trauma and her associating the king with that act. But for Kai, he had nothing to keep him from remembering exactly what her dad looked like, exactly what she looked like. Because my understanding was that she was there or she was in the next room, but enough that it's very likely Kai recognized her face. So that's why I'm wondering, like, did he know it was her dad? And when she was telling him about her past, did he not connect those dots? Or did he connect the dots and he just didn't say anything? This is when he lets her go. He basically tells her to run, and then he throws a dagger after her, and she's like, he let that go because I know for a fact that he never misses. And that's where the book ends. And we go into the epilogue from Kitt's perspective, which is interesting because now I'm like, are we getting more Kitt in the next book? He's king now, but he recognizes this new type of rage in him that he did not have before. Because one thing that I personally really liked about Kitt's character is that he's so kind and he was always so controlled and he spoke very deliberately and stuff like that. Like emotion couldn't really get to him quite as much as like Paedyn or Kai, but like he's done with that basically. And he tells Kai that it's his first mission as his royal executioner person, I forgot what his official title is to go and find Paedyn. I was like, that's either going to be really fun or really scary in the next book. And now that we're in Kitt's head, he did know that Kai was into her. And that, I was a little angry at that because for me, I thought it was weird that Kitt didn't ever say anything to Kai about like, hey, I know you like Paedyn too. Because to me, he just seemed sweet in the way that he would want to address that and figure that out between them. But he never did. And I thought maybe the guy's just oblivious because he likes Paedyn so much. But he totally caught on to the fact that Kai was into Paedyn. And he acknowledges that in this epilogue. I have it here. Bring me Paedyn Gray Enforcer. Then I put wowza at the end because I think that's going to be such a mess. At the bottom, I just put Vamp Diaries, Red Queen, Hunger Games because I do feel like those are all very similar vibes here. The best note of the whole thing, narrator, Chase Brown. Boy, how did you do that? He was such a good narrator. We had, I think it had to have been alternating narrators. Yeah, there was a girl for Paedyn and then there was this guy for Kai and he did such a good job with like the voice and the intonation. I absolutely loved it. But now I feel like this is probably going to be my next audiobook, book 2 is, because I'm just like really invested. I think, plot-wise, Paedyn's gonna go to the rebellion. She is gonna start to like Lenny/Larry, whoever his name was. I'm not gonna approve. Then Kai is gonna be tracking her down like a hunting dog. Like it's gonna be so intense and she's gonna have to keep like escaping and eluding and stuff like that. Somehow Kai's gonna find out more about her and fall in love with her and understand where she's coming from, because that's the difference between Kitt and Kai, is Kai has seen all of these people out and about in the way that Kitt has not from his protected place in the palace. Is Kai going to come over to the rebellion? I think he could. Is Kitt? I don't know. In my opinion, Kitt listens to Paedyn to an extent. Because she was talking about the people in the slums and stuff like that. She's like, how do you even know anything about how they live because you've never seen it? But Kitt even brings things that Paedyn said to his dad to try and like understand. He, I think, genuinely wants to improve the kingdom, but right now he's just so angry about the death of his dad that there's just nothing else is really going to get through that. But Kai doesn't have that same connection to their father, even though, like now, at this point, Paedyn and Kai have killed each other's fathers. And that might be hard to get past in a relationship, but okay. But to Kai, his dad was his personal torturer, because that is how he trained Kai to be the enforcer, was he personally took it upon himself to teach him how to fight and fight against him and to torture him and to like mold Kai into this person. And so I'm just wondering like how angry Kai actually is about the death of their dad, and is he more upset about like the betrayal from Paedyn, because he's at some point going to figure out that she's ordinary. So we'll see how that goes. I think he is going to catch her though. In my opinion, Kai is more skilled and has just as many powers as he wants at his disposal, basically. So I think she's going to eventually get captured and taken back. And then at that point, he's going to develop more of a soft spot for her while she's in jail. If I get all this right, I'm going to be so proud of myself. Anyways, that's it from me for this book, I think. I really enjoyed it. What was your favorite part? And who's your favorite character outside of our main trio? Because I feel like I like Paedyn, but I just really enjoyed being around Kitt the first half of the book. Like, I just think he's so cute and sweet. Though I do think Kai is endgame. And then I think my favorite character outside of that was probably Andy. I really enjoyed her. And my favorite scene was probably Drunk Kai. I thought that was really funny. Or just like their first trial, when they're first like, the banter is strong. Like enemies to lovers banter, very strong in that part of the book. So those are probably my favorite parts. By the way, I'm doing a 2K giveaway. We're getting very, very close to 2,000 subscribers. So thank you for being here. And if you're not subscribed, please subscribe. For the giveaway, I'm giving away 3 sets of book covers. I will put examples on the screen. There's a link to enter the giveaway in the description, so I will leave that there. And other than that, have a lovely day. My name's Caitlin. Thanks for watching. Bye.